Hi friends, join me today as I do some baking. I have some apples that I need to use up. They're starting to look kind of wrinkly, and if I wait any longer I might as well just put them in the compost. So I'm going to go ahead and use up some apples, and I'm going to make a yummy dessert. I've never actually made this dessert before, but it's got apples and cinnamon in it. How can it be wrong? So come along and I'll show you what we're going to make, and hopefully you will try this recipe as well. Louisa May Alcott's Apple Slump. Louisa May Alcott, for those of you who don't know, wrote Little Women. I've had this recipe in my binder for years, and I've never used it. I've never tried it. I've been intending to, and so I think today is the day. You need 3 cups of sliced apples for this recipe. It said 4 to 6 apples, but I've got 7 here. These are ones that need to be used up because they've got bad spots and things. That's not really even a bad spot. It's just a discolored spot. I don't know what that is. This is really small, but I'm going to go ahead and just use all of these apples, even if it's more than 3 cups. I like lots of apples in my desserts, so if it's a little more, that is no problem with me. The recipe says to use a 1.5 quart baking dish, and I'm not sure if that's what this size is, but this is what I have, so this is what I'm going to use. Plus I did have extra apples, more than 3 cups, so I'm going to go ahead and spray this pan with cooking spray, and I'm going to have to go cover that bird because he's making some pretty sounds, but he's making squawky sounds too. So if he just sings, we'll leave him uncovered. But if he starts squawking, he's getting covered up. Alright, so you preheat the oven to 350 degrees, which is what I have done. Yeah, he had to be covered. Alright, so I sprayed this pan with cooking spray. You can also rub it with butter if that's what you want. And then you put the sliced apples into the dish, and as you can see I have well over 3 cups. I have more like probably closer to 5 here, but I wanted to use up those apples. So, and some of them didn't get completely skinned, but that's okay. In this separate bowl you mix together 1/2 cup of firmly packed brown sugar, I'm going to make this recipe exactly how it's written. It doesn't have extra exorbitant amount of sugar and oil in it. And I think because Louisa May Alcott, she was alive during, I think it was during the Civil War era, pretty sure. And they didn't have as much sugar and things available to them as we have nowadays. So anyway, you put 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar in this bowl, and to that you add 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and I don't have very much nutmeg left at all. I may only have about 1/4 cup, or 1/4 teaspoon. So yep, just about exactly 1/4 teaspoon is all I had left. So nutmeg has to be on my shopping list because I'm completely out. And then we're going to add, it calls for 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, but I really like cinnamon, so I'm going to go with 1/2 teaspoon. I would put a whole teaspoon in, but my husband's not as much of a fan of cinnamon as I am, so. And then 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And you know what? I'm going to add just a little bit more cinnamon. I can't help it. Apples and cinnamon are just so good together. So then you just mix this all together. And then you sprinkle it on top of the apples. And then you bake this uncovered until they are soft, about 20 minutes. Now that's not all to this recipe, so I'm going to bring you back when these are out of the oven and we will do the next part of the recipe. It actually says that while the apples are baking, you put together the topping mixture. So that's what I'll go ahead and do. I'll put these in the oven and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to put together the topping mixture. So while the apples are baking, you're going to be making the topping. And the topping is made up of 1.5 cups of flour. I'm going to put 1.5 cups of flour in my mixing bowl here. And to that you're going to add the baking powder, salt, and sugar. It's 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 cup of sugar. And I use organic sugar, that's why it's not pure white. You just want to blend the dry ingredients together just real quickly. Then to the dry ingredients you're going to add 1 egg, well beaten, half a cup of melted butter, and of course this is margarine, and 1/2 cup of milk, and this is cashew milk, unsweetened. And then you just stir these ingredients together gently. So that I'm just going to put it on low on my machine. So there's the batter, and I'm just going to let this hang out in this bowl until the apples are soft, and when they're done I'll bring you back and I'll show you what you do next. Here are the apples out of the oven, and it took them about more like a 1/2 hour than 20 minutes to get tender. And about halfway through the cooking time, I mixed the sugar and spices into the apples. You were actually supposed to do that before you put it in the oven, and I forgot to do that. So now, the next thing you do is you take the batter that you made while the apples were baking, and you just spread this mixture evenly over the apples. And I need a bigger spatula than this little guy. It's not going to do it. Then you put this back in the oven and you continue baking it until the top is brown and crusty. It's at about 25 minutes, but it'll probably be more like 35 minutes with my oven, but I'll let you know how long it took when it is done, and I will bring you back when it comes out of the oven. And here it is out of the oven. It looks delicious. I'm not going to cut into it right now because it's piping hot, and we will have this with our dinner tonight. Thanks so much for joining me today with this Bake With Me video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you give this recipe a try. And as always, the recipe will be in the description box below. We'll talk to you later, friends. Bye-bye.